Today you're not going to learn about just any story. You're going to learn about an event that very, very few people know about. And what's more, it's related in turn to another event that's really going to leave you more than surprised. And possibly all of this will leave you wondering just how far a person can go to perform an act of love. But we're also going to see the other side, where some people, in the name of evil, commit acts that truly shake anyone. Remember to share your experience via the WhatsApp number on screen now. The number and duration of audios are irrelevant. Feel free to include any relevant details to make your story as comprehensive as possible. Then I review everything, and if there are any doubts, I will be contacting you. I leave all the important links in a pinned comment, whether it's to the channel store, my social networks, and also to my channel. Who was it? Friends, now without further ado, we start right now with this new paranormal story. Enjoy it.
Hello, my name is Juan Manuel. I live in the city of Cordoba. I was a volunteer for a non-governmental organization called Soles. I was a volunteer for several years. And, well, wasn't he very skeptical of all things beyond or paranormal? I didn't believe in that until recently. As a volunteer, I had several experiences, many, but the one that impacted me the most is the one I'm going to tell.
As I told you, I recently volunteered for a non-governmental organization in my province, and among so many tasks that were done. On one occasion, I was at the Santissima Trinidad Children's Hospital, very close to Sarmiento Park, in the heart of Cordoba's capital. In this place, one of the strangest moments of my entire life occurred, which I didn't understand at the time. But little by little, everything was giving me answers and confirming that the impossible is often not so. When I started working there, I of course encountered many kids dealing with all sorts of health problems. Some were just passing through, while others were dealing with extremely serious illnesses and in some cases, terminal ones. It's extremely hard to come across all of this, because it shows us a harsh reality, very difficult to process. Among all the kids I got to know when I started, I met an 11-year-old girl named Mariana. She was admitted to this hospital. She was different. While everyone else got along with the care staff, the doctors, the employees, with us the volunteers, she didn't. There was no way to gain her trust. Permanently, she responded poorly, pushing away anyone who wanted to distract her a bit, whether by playing something or just chatting. There was no way to reach her. When I encountered this situation, I decided for some reason to try to reach Mariana. I felt that I had to do it. I felt that somehow she needed me. So I observed for several days how she reacted, how people approached her. I mean, with what attitude they did it, and I tried to do something different. I behaved practically the opposite of everyone else. And this worked because with Mariana, little by little we began to get closer, until I directly earned her affection and trust. In fact, we became friends. And this was so much so that her own mother couldn't even understand it. And when she wasn't around for some reason, I often stayed to keep her company. Something that not only filled me with joy, but also gave me peace knowing that she finally had someone else to rely on. I want to make it clear that I had no idea why she was behaving like that. What had happened before? Honestly, I didn't care. I never looked into it, and my mission was simply to help her as much as possible, but unfortunately, her illness was very serious. As time passed, I received a devastating, unexpected call one morning. It was Mariana's mother telling me that her daughter was asking, please, to see me. She was going through her last moments and wanted to say goodbye to me, her only friend in that hospital. I ran over there and was with her and her mom until the little girl finally passed away. It was very hard for me. In the hospital, you live with life and death all the time, but when it comes to children, it's much sadder. And in this case, it was not only that, but she was also my friend, because I considered her that way too.
It's already sold. I went to her wake, which is in a town here in Cordoba called Villa del Ique. I was at her wake on a very cold day. Very cold. I remember that the national team was playing on a Sunday, and well, I went to the wake. I arrived at her town. It was snowing. I stayed with her. There came a point where we were alone. I said goodbye to her as if I was talking like I talked to you. I gave her a kiss and told her that, well, I was going to visit her.
I was very hurt the days. A few weeks passed perhaps, and that's when, from one day to the next, I started dreaming about Mariana. In these dreams, the little girl would tell me to please tell her mom that she was very happy and that she didn't have to cry for her anymore. And that now she had to take care of her sister because she needed her much more. The truth is that these dreams could just be those simple dreams due to the hard blow from the passing. But all of a sudden this changed. The dreams turned into something similar to a nightmare because Mariana in them was bad. She was worried, sad, she was rather desperate. And in them she kept telling me insistently a phrase that was burned into me. Tell my mom that I'm okay, that we're going to see each other again, but this is not the way. She repeated the last part until I woke up very startled. It was a very ugly feeling because I felt Mariana's anguish inside me. I knew what was happening. Every Thursday we had meetings with the group of volunteers to share the experiences that each one had in their different tasks during the week at the hospital. This helps a lot as one externalizes in some way, as if doing it with a psychologist, the feelings we go through when witnessing moments, for example, like the one I had to live through. In a meeting, I decided to share my experience. I talked about the friendship with the girl, her passing, those first dreams that were comforting, and finally these last ones that left me extremely bad, very, very sad. And contrary to what I imagined, what I shared was taken in a good way and seriously. The coordinator himself and several other people told me that this was normal, because many times people, and even more so children, use us as a bridge to convey certain messages, especially when we establish some kind of bond with them. And this on one hand reassured me, knowing that at least I wasn't going crazy. But it upset me to understand that Mariana was distressed and worried about something that her mother perhaps needed to know. That same night, a truly incredible moment occurred. I dreamt of her as had become customary. She was very nervous, sad, upset. She kept repeating the same phrase over and over again. Tell my mom that I'm okay, that we're going to see each other again, but this is not the way, but this is not the way, but this is not the way. Something else happened. While she was practically shouting at me, this last thing, she grabbed my right arm very hard. She looked me in the eyes and then I woke up. That time I had chills all over my body, just like right now. Well, I'm telling you this because when I looked at my arm, incredibly, I saw that all her fingers were marked in the same place where she had grabbed me. I couldn't sleep anymore that early morning. I felt restless, very nervous, scared, and I realized that I had to do something. I couldn't continue like this. I talked it over with my colleagues and we all understood something. Mariana wanted to give a message to her mom through me. And that last part, where she repeated over and over, we're going to see each other again, but this is not the way. We interpreted that possibly, and due to the great distress, her mom was thinking about making a final decision regarding her life. So with a lot of courage and praying that her mom would take it well, I went to visit her. I had to tell her everything that was happening to me.
We traveled to Villa del Lique, and while we were drinking yerba mate and chatting, I told her about the dream. But I forgot the last part. When the thermos runs out of water, she gets up and goes to put the kettle on. I told her I forgot about this part. She got angry, raised my arm and tied me up. She told me to tell my mom that we will see each other again someday, but this is not the way. To which she brings her back to me and falls to the floor. I started to cry uncontrollably. I was with a colleague who had accompanied me, another volunteer. We sat her down, talked to her, and she tells me, crying and now more calm, "Juan, if I tell you what I did, are you going to tell me I'm crazy?"
She told me that a few days after her daughter's death. She went into a very, very strong crisis of crying and desperation, where she couldn't come to terms with what had happened. She got up, went to the shed, grabbed something, and left. Her other daughter, seeing her desperate mother leave the house, had alerted her grandfather. She told him everything. And it was he who entered the mausoleum just before he could force the lid of the coffin, stopping. Perhaps a scene that would further aggravate the anguish of that woman. He hugged her, they cried together, and luckily, everything remained an attempt. That afternoon, after hearing the mother, I understood Mariana's phrase she used to tell me. That worry and sadness she had were precisely because of that fact that her mother tried to carry out. After that day, she improved a lot, and while the anguish will never go away, she was able to move on with her life, taking care of her other daughter and remembering Mariana with all the love possible. From my side, I was more than impressed, as were many of my other colleagues, because it was really shocking to understand how all this happened. And the why, of course. But it didn't all end there. The next night, after telling this to my companions, while we were listening to the radio, we started to hear a new story that chilled our blood. And it was impossible not to relate one thing to the other. They began to report about a mother from Cruz del Eje who had lost her daughter to leukemia. She was only 6 years old. She had died, curiously, in the same children's hospital where we were doing our collaborations. This mother was immersed in deep sadness and, together with other people, committed an act that mixes madness, love, and desperation. It may begin with a call to the police station. It was the watchman from the San Jose cemetery reporting that some people had entered the cemetery and vandalized a niche in the children's pavilion. It wasn't hard to know which grave it was. It was Carla Martinez, who passed away a year earlier. The police went to the family's house, entered, and encountered a horrific scene. A white coffin was resting on some chairs, used as a sort of easel. It was in a room. Inside this coffin was the body of Carla Martin. It turned out that her mother, along with other collaborators, went to the cemetery, broke the lid of the niche, and stole the coffin. What was the purpose? Her mother said it without any kind of shame. She couldn't stand the anguish. She was desperate and wanted to sleep one more night next to her little girl, to sing her favorite songs and tell her the stories she never got to hear.
And my colleagues were left. We all got goosebumps because the same thing she had done with Tane, Carla's mom just did. And, well, it came out in the news. I have the newspaper clipping. And, well, from there I knew that, well, something beyond this plane, there are kids. They have communicated. It's not the only story I have. Several have communicated. Bridging the gap with parents by sharing a word or an event that they understand comes from their child. That's my story.
These two events, it could be said that they were carried out in the name of love and desperation. But now I'm going to tell you about two others. Unfortunately, among many others, that surpass logic and really, as I told you at the beginning, shake anyone. Also in the province of Cordoba, more precisely in the San Francisco cemetery, a woman was arrested after being seen doing something chilling. She was a former employee of the cemetery, so she knew perfectly well the security management within the premises. And so she entered at night, unearthed the coffin, opened it, and with the corpse in front of her, cut off 2 fingers from the person resting there. Apparently, and this is the most chilling part, she did this to carry out a commissioned witchcraft. The purpose is unknown, but it was surely something quite heavy, very negative, because otherwise the magnitude of doing such a thing is incomprehensible. And it would be really interesting if you know about these topics and you're listening, you can clarify in the comments why a person could do something like this, using human parts of a corpse, to consecrate witchcraft to a black magic job. On the other hand, we're going to the Otamendi Cemetery near San Mar del Plata, where we're going to learn about something that's really going to fill you with indignation and show you once again how far can a person's madness go. Alberto and Mara had approached the cemetery. It was December 24th, a date that might be important to understand why what happened. They entered where the coffin was with their 1-year and 2-month-old son, who had recently passed away. And since the niche sector, where it would finally be deposited, was still under renovation, it was in a special room waiting for the moment of transfer. His parents had placed a white rosary on the coffin, something that served as evidence later on, although it was not taken into account. It turned out that on that 24th of December, they realized that the lid was loose, and upon checking they found the coffin empty. Had someone stolen their son's body? To summarize this case a bit, the corresponding reports were made, and a search began not only in the cemetery, but also in the surrounding premises. But little Kiro's body never appeared. And if one digs a little deeper, one finds that this was not the only body stolen from the cemetery. For example, there was another case where the corpse of another child disappeared, who was indeed found discarded by the side of a road. But with a difference. All his teeth had been pulled out, and also, according to some reports, some parts of his body had been amputated. There's another case related to the corpse of a little girl, and there are surely many more. But what's curious is that it always happens on dates when religious celebrations are held, like it was the case with Shiro on December 24th or Matthias during Easter of 2017. Therefore, many agree on something. The bodies are desecrated to perform black magic works. The investigations led to a former gravedigger named Carlos Lopez. This man, although he absolutely denied everything, could not explain that inside his house and his mother's, things related to occultism and black magic rituals were found. Like, for example, dolls with their mouths sewn shut, Catholic statuettes that were inside a box full of ashes. There were black candles, red candles, images of Saint Death everywhere, and even crosses that were set on fire, among many other things. Another important detail in the case that drew a lot of attention was that right across from this man's house was a studio apartment he owned, meticulously clean, where there was only a bed in the center of the room. When different neighbors were interviewed, many agreed that this man, along with his mother, had repeatedly led inside this studio with other invited people. Apparently all kinds of rituals, where they recited fragments of the Bible, spoke in tongues that no one understood. They were seen with bandages on their eyes, black hoods. And even, one of the witnesses claimed to see that on one occasion, one of the people present was covered in blood, and they were eating dirt that could be from a cemetery. This man to this day is free due to lack of evidence, as the messages from the cell phones were curiously deleted just before the raid. It is unknown if the police managed to recover them and the security cameras that could have captured the exact moment of the theft. Also, and very curiously, they stopped working at that exact moment. This leads to the thought that perhaps more people are involved. And one more point that incriminated this man, the gravedigger Carlos Lopez, was that the police, when they raided his house, found a white rosary identical to the one that Kiro had on his coffin before it was desecrated. Friends, thank you very much for making it to the end. See you in the next chapter. And now I send a big hug to everyone.